Mm. Hey y'all, welcome to the Devon A. Morris Unfiltered call-in show. Have a seat. Let's get ready. You have any questions? Come on, call in. Come on to that Discord channel. Do me a favor, get the unfiltered crew some finger snaps. We're ready to get started here. Mondays, 8 p.m. Every single Monday, we're here. I'm excited about it. Are you? Let's get this show started, y'all. The greatest Scrum show on earth. I'll see y'all soon. Enjoy.
All right, all right, all right, all right. Hello, 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 hello. How are you today? Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Unfiltered Call-In Show. We talk about Agile, Scrum, entrepreneurship, all those wonderful and great things. Um, man, hopefully you've been having a good day today. Have you been having a good day today? I hope you have. I've been having an excellent day. It was an excellent weekend. It's been an excellent time. I'm just feeling good today. I'm feeling excellent, right? So, as we usually will do, just make sure that you're in the house, LinkedIn, YouTube. Drop me a hi in the chat, please. Say what's up. Tell me where you're at. Tell me how's it been going for you. In terms of this week, life is good. Life is good. Just doing good work, making things happen. Always got great stuff going on. I will give you an update on that program so you all know, at least from that perspective, and we got that in and out the way. But I'll give that update in a little bit of time, so then we can be good. Let's see. In terms of what's going on with me, still out there grinding, still out there doing some work for clients, just lots of things just to do in general. So I'm just like, I'm super happy. I'm super happy. This is what I do all day, every day. Do you understand? This is how it works, right? This is the way it's supposed to be. But you know how we just kind of get real here, right? You know how it works. So let me tell you a little bit if you're new to the show. Um, we talk about Agile, Scrum, entrepreneurship, things like that. The way it works is really simple. We start off with a little bit of intros here. I get some shouts out. And then after that, we jump into our topic. And our topic today is going to be the anatomy of a user story. Really simple, just the basics. Remember, this is our refining refinement series where this is the 3 out of 4. We've talked about things like the definition already. And next week, we're going to talk about splitting strategies, right? Next week, we're going to talk about splitting strategies. So we should have a good time. So at least we begin this part of the user story anatomy, and we get to the core of this, and I'll give you some additional extra stuff. So, and then we're good to go. Let's see. Once we are, done with those intros, we will go through that actual topic of the day, which is the anatomy of user stories, as I just stated. And then after that, normally about 20 minutes after, maybe 25 minutes after the hour, I'll open up the floor, and you can ask questions that you have about Scrum Agile entrepreneurship. Now, the way we ask questions is really very simple. You are welcome to drop those questions in the chat. You are certainly welcome to drop those questions in the chat. Or you can actually come on the show and join us, have a little conversation, right? So that being said, let me throw out a few things that I have going on this week. I will be presenting at Agile for Humanity. Me and Lizzie. Lizzie is my business partner, and we will be presenting together, talking about um, legacy and pain. That's what we'll be talking about. And I see Dr. Dave here. So, Dr. Dave, there you go. Let's see. Your show for Agile. Well, there we go. There we go. What's up, Devon? There we go. So, Dr. Dave, wonderful, 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 great man there. I may have to bring you on a show, Dr. Dave, just to talk about, hey, what's happening for Agile Humanity. So, if you okay with that, then just let me know you're okay in the chat. All right, so here's the deal, right? Let me say hi to everybody, right? So, hey, Patrick, as usual, how you doing, buddy? Hopefully everything is great for you. We're gonna have to have a chat, Patrick, because I want to see how things are going for you this year. We've been talking, right? We made some plans from last year, so gotta hold you accountable to those things, right? John, hey John, how's it going, man? Man, thought I was gonna see you today, John. What happened? Anyway, welcome, 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 John. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see. Let's see. Chucks. Yeah, you was on a show before. You make me very proud, man. You're making me very proud. Keep doing great stuff. Keep doing great stuff. Let's see. I got Miss Sabrina. The young guns. The young guns. That's what I'm gonna call Miss Sabrina. She's a part of the young guns, the young gun team, right? So I like Miss Sabrina. Let's see. Dr. Dave's in the house. I just showed you Dr. Dave, right? Hey, Hernando, how's it going? How are you? Let's see. Miss Hancock, how are you? So Palm Beach in the house. I get it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I have Miss Petra in the house. So do me a favor, Dr. Dave, I need you to join me, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a link to the chat. I want you to join me real quick and tell us all about this Agile for Humanity. And let me go ahead and drop this in the chat for us. So, and then you can at least join us and say hi to us, at least say this information here. So let me drop this on LinkedIn real quick so you can have it. And then I'll drop this on YouTube so everybody can have it. But that link is specifically for you to join the show. If you're not interested in joining the show, then you don't need to click that link, right? So Dr. Dave, come on and join me, and then we'll go ahead and break on into it. And I've had Dr. Dave join the show, and we've talked about some good stuff along the way. So this is a good thing. If you'd like to join us at Agile for Humanity on the 24th. Lizzie and I are doing a keynote on Friday, starting at about 9:30, 9:30, I believe, Mountain Standard, 10:30 Central. And so I'd like to bring Dr. Dave on it to talk about it real quick, at least what it's all about, and then we can go from there. So let's go ahead and split this up real quick to make sure we're good to go. Got that, got that. Give me a second here, Dr. Dave, and then we'll be solid. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Here we go. So let me bring Dr. Dave in real quick for us to talk about this. Hello, sir. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you, brother. Can you hear me?
I can hear you as well, man. Yeah, hey, scoot over toward the middle, man. Scoot over toward the middle so you can be in the middle. There you go. Look at you. You gotta act like you're on the show, man.
Hey, man.
There you go. You
When,
see,
when you
you
when you
you
when you're
framed
doing the
yourself
work
up,
all
brother.
day, you're like, "Hey, man, am I in the middle? I'm in the rear." Trying to
No,
figure it out.
Nah, Dr. Dave is the man. I'm gonna tell you something, right? So Dr. Dave, obviously with the name Doctor, and you only go by the name Dave, you're super important, right? So here's the
Uh,
deal. I'm following him. I'm trying to get a PhD so I can be like him and people can call me Dr. D. But here's the deal. I'm keynoting with Lizzie. We're talking about legacy, we're talking about pain. Um, and I'd like for you to tell us more about the conference itself and just give people generally an invitation.
Hey, look, we kicked this off several years ago, but the whole thing is we're trying to bring everyone together and have more conversation as a collective, right?
Hmm.
Especially for the BIPOC community, right? Oftentimes we don't get a chance. I don't get to see you speaking at conferences and
Yeah.
being keynotes. So my thing is like, why don't I just create something that I could see you and Lizzie and Brandon and his
Brandon.
bride Nicole, right? I mean, come on and speak and share your truth, share your wisdom back with our community. And so that's what Agile for Humanity is. It's for all human beings for us to come on and share knowledge and
Hmm.
interact. So for 2 days, we're gonna have 2 beautiful days, starting the 24th and the 25th, which is this Friday and this Saturday. We're gonna have like 2 full days of conversation. So we start off with with Devon and Lizzie doing a keynote, and then we have a series of 12 10-minute talks. from people from around the world,
Hmm.
different topics, really cool stuff. And then, Saturday, we'll have Brandon and Nicole coming from
Hmm.
Virginia back east. They're sharing their story. And then we'll have some stuff about agile education, which is an important thing for me. And then we're
Hmm.
going to do future search. You remember you guys did future search and came out with the
Yeah, yeah.
melanated, it wasn't called,
Action
but called
Society.
something
Yeah,
else.
yeah. We
Yeah,
we did
yeah.
the man,
You
and
know,
it's actually still going. We meet every single quarter.
Yeah, yeah, I've dropped in some of those, but I'm just saying that was born out of that conversation and the
Hmm.
meeting of the mind. So that's what this conference is about. Register. We don't want anyone to have any boundaries, so we have things like, hey, come in and pay what you can, or you just pay the rate. And either which way, just
Enjoy
come and
yourself.
learn and be a part of our community. So
Yeah.
it's not only just an annual conference, so we have bi-monthly meetup. So come
Hmm.
on out, Devon.
Yeah.
Devon, I'm so glad that I can't wait to hear the story on Friday. Just can't wait, man. I'm staying
Hey,
up late
we
at night
we
thinking
we
about
we
this.
we we fired up, man. We fired up.
I hear
It's
you,
gonna be
man.
amazing. It's going to be unbelievable. Because
I believe that.
well, Dr. Dave, I appreciate it, and I will be there
Thank
with
you, brother.
bells on. And so, thank you for coming on real quick. I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon, my brother.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right then.
All right.
Everybody, I just needed to bring Dr. Dave on. He has some amazing books. That he just has always been doing great stuff. Actually, he wrote his dissertation about Agile, for real, right? So just know that, and know that there are wonderful and great people out here doing great things and trying to get people together, trying to get people to convene, right? So let's talk. Let's talk. Let's dive onto this topic, right? We're talking about user stories today, and the anatomy of user stories, right? It shouldn't be anything complicated or surprising for anyone here in terms of thinking about user stories. But let's start off at the very top, at a place, and I got a couple things to show you here. What is an actual requirement, right? A requirement is simply a usable representation of the need, right? That's all it really is. It is nothing more than just that usable representation of the need. Now, here's the deal. When you think about a requirement, it can be a traditional requirement. And classically, traditional requirements are business requirements and or technical requirements. These are the classic requirements that you will see people utilize within our space, right? However, there are also things like use cases, which is normally focused on the system or interactions toward the system. And then you have what a lot of us Agilists use called user stories. User stories are amazing because user stories are comprehensive. And because they're comprehensive, anybody can truly work on a user story, right? It has a format. We'll hit that format later. User stories kind of come out of extreme programming. And since it comes out of extreme programming, there, it has some legs there, right? Because the conversations that were had with me about user stories is that it's a card, that's a placeholder, right? To have a conversation, and you write any confirmations on the back, right? If you know about the three C's, I just mentioned them to you, right? Card, conversation, confirmations, right? And what it was designed to do was be like talking around a campfire, right? You're telling stories to each other, right? And the benefit of extreme programming is that there's this concept called an on-site customer. And then you can imagine if you got a customer that's on site, a user that's on site, you can imagine you might not need to write as much stuff, right? Because you got that knowledge in the room, you got someone there to help you, basically get the thing right, hopefully the first time. Get the thing right, hopefully the first time. Get the story right the first time. That's the position that you want to truly be in. And when it comes to a user story helps to facilitate that, right? And you'll see that Scrum doesn't have any concept of a user story or anything like that. What Scrum has is a product backlog, and inside of that product backlog, you put product backlog items, PBIs. Most people say when it comes to PBIs, you should make sure that they they follow a dove concept where you want an idea of the description. You want to be able to order it. You want to have an idea of the value. You want to make sure it's estimated. These are things that you might see in terms of concepts associated with user stories. So at least PBIs, you might see dove, right? But again, a user story is not a part of Scrum. So fundamentally, what is a user story? If you go and you take a look, all it really is fundamentally is simply this. It is as who. That's all you really got. As who. The who is really important here because you want who's that are not generic, right? So you want to move beyond just saying the consumer, the actual customer. You want to be move beyond just saying the user itself. So as a mobile banker, as a frequent flyer, as a premium frequent flyer, you can also go as deep as using a persona, as Mary Moxie, right? Whatever it is, it gives a better idea of who that is. You have to remember that in Scrum, a developer is anyone that's working on any aspect of building whatever it is that we're trying to build. That's what we're kind of doing in Scrum, but we call that a developer. That means a software developer is a developer. A tester is a developer for you software heads, right? Or if you're not in software, the plumber, the electrician, the person that's putting up your cabinets in a house that you're remodeling, they're the developers. So it's really a generic term in terms of Scrum. So when you really think about that, who they don't really get to see that user all the time. So you giving them who that is. When I say as Mary Moxie and I created a persona, when I say as a premium frequent flyer, that right there helps them to get a better feel, to be able to put themselves in the shoes of that particular person. So you want to make sure that you kind of lean away from generic users, right? And then just kind of move in and lean in toward giving a little bit more specifics about that. So you got as who, and then you got I want. What is it that you want, right? It is they want something. This right here is the actual requirement itself, right? It's the requirement that is truly from the perspective of the user that we just talked about, the who that we just talked about. And this is extremely important. As a mobile banker, I want to send money by email. As a person riding the public transportation, I want to get a vehicle, right? Realistically, it is from their perspective. It should be written in a plain language, just simple English so people understand it. And then you got that last part. You got the why. The why is your reason. That's really all it is. It is nothing more than your reason. It would be great if your reason was quantifiable. It would be great if your reason has some value associated with it, but that is not always the case. And a lot of people, skip that why part, but that why gives you that true reason. It gives you that purpose, right? The purpose could be so that I can sit down and so my life can be easy, right? But sometimes, that purpose could be so I can save people on the call center, people in a call center more time so they can do more work with the user, right? I might go as deep as that. Just remember that user stories don't innately have value by themselves. They normally need to be combined with other things. You'll see more value pretty much at the epic level. I said another term, epic. What do I mean by an epic? A big user story. It's something that's going to take you more than one sprint to actually get done. And usually there's a parent-child relationship between an epic and a user story. So you have an epic, you break the epic down into other epics, you break that down into other epics, and when do you know you got a user story? Well, that's not a complicated thing because all you need to really do is look at something as simple as the invest criteria. Because the invest criteria provides the standard that you can utilize to gauge against it, right? Invest, you can see the first letter of each one of these words, and you can see that one that starts with an S says is small, small enough to be completed in a sprint. That is realistically the main boundary for if between a user story and an epic, right? Do you have to write epics in the same format that you write user stories? Not necessarily. Some people actually do. But if you really take a look at it, you want to make sure it's small enough to be completed in a single sprint. So this is really, really important. Yeah, we want it to be valuable to the actual customer, to the actual user. The other one of these things, all of them apply here. But what you're going to see is that small enough is the classic thing that differentiates a epic from a user story. There's other things like there could be complexity and risk. There could be dependencies. There could be other things. But probably the most salient thing is going to be the actual that is small enough to be completed in a single sprint. And so you got that epic. You break that epic down. You ultimately end up with user stories. But here's the deal. Every user story should have one to many pieces of what I'm going to call acceptance criteria. And I got acceptance criteria all around the border here. But the simplest acceptance criteria can be something like simple demonstrate statements. Demo, 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 demo. Or it can be a variation of this, something like, let's see, test, 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 validate, 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 verify, verify, verify would all be, uh, just simple things. But here's the deal. Here's an example, right? Uh, this is a demo here. The user needs to send money by email. As a mobile banker, I need to send money by email so that I can send money easy. Demonstrate a minimum $50 send money threshold. Demonstrate a maximum $2,000. Demonstrate that I can enter in a required email address, send date, and optional message. Demonstrate the ability to select an account. Demonstrate the ability that upon pressing send money, validation of required fields. Let me pause right there for a second because I want to make sure that you understand. Nothing here at all says that I cannot add any additional documentation to my user story. You can add as much documentation as you need to. I've had a user story before that had 42 pages worth of business rules. It happens. There's no big deal on it. It's just part of what happens and a part of what we do all the time, every day. So then you can add that documentation. That's okay. Just add it as an asset to the actual story. And nobody will complain about it because nothing in Agile says that you can't have documentation. It just says we lean more toward delivering working product. But if documentation is something that you need to have, just make sure it's barely sufficient. Just make sure it's barely sufficient, okay? And then the last one here was demo the ability to cancel. Let's say that the ability to cancel had some complexity to it, some risk to it, some uncertainty to it. We can always pull out the ability to demonstrate the ability to cancel. We can pull that out and create another user story off of it. Okay. Notice that all these things are from the perspective of the user. And it's really important for you to understand that it's all from the perspective of the user. It being from the perspective of the user means you can do something really important, and that is find the 80/20 sweet spot, right? Um, Classically, when we think about outcomes, you got to understand something, right? When I say outcomes, I'm not talking about outputs. Outcomes are related to how the outputs impact the users, right? So you're going to create these outputs, but how they impact the users is where you're driving return on investment from, right? And so you got to think about this, especially if you're a product owner or somebody who's writing stories. So user stories is not anything complicated. You know, they've been around for so long that they are innately a part of Scrum. I would call them a common use Scrum practice or generally accepted Scrum practice because you'll find that the majority of teams on the planet actually do user stories, right? And just remember that user story is a clear, simple description of value that is valuable for who? The actual user, okay? Once you lose the sight of it being valuable for the user, is it really a user story anymore? I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, could you have users from very different perspectives? There's multiple products or multiple things that you're working on, have multiple users? Absolutely. I always got an administrator. I could have a customer. I can have other types of users that exist. It is important for you to understand who your users are and write stories accordingly. Even another system, a system that's over there, could be an actual user. So user stories offer you a lot of flexibility. It's just when you start thinking about user stories and when they start becoming too big, you got to start finding out or figure out what you're going to do about them. Okay. And doing something about them is half the battle. Okay. It's half the battle. Here's my question for you. In the work that you do today with the people that you work with, client, your company, do you actually use user stories? Do you actually use user stories? And if your answer is yes to that, part B to that question, is that the only type of requirements that you're using in the building? So are you using user stories? And is that the only type of requirements that you're using in the building? Do me a favor, drop those answers in the chat. Drop those answers in the chat because I want to see what you actually do. Because a lot of times when I walk into organizations, there's every single type of requirement that I described to you. use cases, business requirements, technical requirements, and user stories are within the organization on agile teams at that, right? Some agile teams have a combination of these things, which again can be fine. You just got to find ways to deal with it, work through it, and then we go from there. So that is what I wanted to talk to you about in terms of user stories, because user stories is extremely important, right? Um, it's kind of like if you really utilize them, you kind of in a good place, right? So I see Ronetta says yes and yes. So yes, they use user stories, and yes, they're not they're not the only thing in the building, right? Um, if they are, that's a good thing, right? I see Philo here says, "Hey, yes, with Jira." Okay, now understand something. So everybody knows Jira is a tool, people. It's a tool, right? And all tools are non-value add but necessary. Okay, which means you don't have to have no tools in order to write stories or do Scrum, right? I've done Scrum with little index cards, right? With index cards and putting index cards on walls, right? I've done a lot of Scrum with that, right? And you all got to determine. Well, maybe you don't have a choice. If your organization picked Jira, then you stuck. If your organization picked Microsoft Suite or whatever, you're stuck. If your organization picked IBM Suite or whatever, you're stuck. Or whatever other organization or company that you decided to partner with, that's all good. That's fine. That is perfectly fine. That works, right? Nothing against any tool. Well, I got everything against all tools. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I don't just jump into tools. I wanted my team to learn how to do the process, and then we jump into a tool so we can find the right tool that fits them, right? Let's see. User stories is what's used. I don't understand your question, Evelyn. A user story is what's used. I don't understand. Talk to me. Rewrite that for me, because you may have fat fingered something. I'm not sure. But here's the deal. That is the essence of a user story. I do want to say this to you that you're going to find all kinds of things in any product backlog. Let's see. Let me see. Ronetta clearing that up for me. Yes, the only thing in the building is user stories, epics. I like that. I love it. When you're using, let me put it this way. You know how you have multiple languages that exist, and you know how you can express something in a language, and there's no way to translate that, ideally for what it is. That's what happens when you have multiple types of requirements in the building. Sometimes something gets lost in translation, and you want to be really careful about that. It actually happens. It actually happens. So it's a good thing. So Ronetta, you need to come teach me. What are you doing? Why you not teaching me? So one thing I do want to say to you all real quick is just because you're using user stories, it may not be the only thing in a product backlog. For most of you, it's probably not going to be the only thing in a product backlog. You're going to have things like user stories. You're going to have defects, spikes, technical stories, epics. You'll classically see a product backlog contains all different kinds of things in it. So it happens. It happens all day, every single day. But that is the essence of what user stories are. Okay. My question for you all now is I'd like to take this a little bit different. I'd like to switch gears. Well, no, let me not switch gears yet. Next week, next week, we're going to actually have a conversation about something that's near and dear to my heart. And that conversation is going to be about splitting stories. Now, again, when I say splitting stories, I mean slicing stories, right? And I'm going to make sure that we go through something that I always like to make sure that, people that work with Bearded Eagle in some kind of way have to some degree. And I will show it to you in just a moment. So then you can actually have the opportunity to see it. I'm going to throw it on the screen real quick for you. And then we could be probably happy, good to go. But let me make this super big. And let me make it big enough for you all to see it. Let's see. Boom. All right. So next week, we're going to make sure that we talk about splitting strategies. Oh, man, that's the wrong screen. So let me grab the other screen. Okay. I'm going to make sure we talk about splitting strategies, right? And when we talk about splitting strategies, I'm going to make sure that I go through this with you. Because right here on this diagram right here, which we pass off to lots and lots and lots and lots of people, it's 11 different strategies on how to split. We're going to talk about a few of these next week, and then we're going to try to make it all work great. We're going to make it work in a way that just is ridiculous and crazy on a whole nother level, on a whole nother level. So next week we're going to be talking about splitting stories, and that's going to be really, really, truly fun. So I look forward to seeing y'all at that one. Well, here we go. Here's what I need from you all now. You know how we operate. This is the time. We're about half past the hour. It's time for me to answer your questions. So, what questions do you have related to Scrum, Agile, entrepreneurship? Obviously, if you want top priority in getting your questions answered, you need to join me on the show. In order to join me on the show, all I really need you to do is something that shouldn't be too difficult for you to do whatsoever. And that is join me live on the show. Anybody who joins me live on the show obviously gets priority, and you'll join me live just like Dr. Dave did earlier. And we'll talk about whatever your question is, okay? And then we'll double back and deal with the other things that we need to, okay? So that being said, let's keep ourselves moving. Let's keep ourselves going here. I absolutely love it. It looked like, yeah, I'm looking at my little thing. It looked like my stuff got blurry. That's okay. We're still rocking though. All right. So that being said, got questions? Drop them in the chat. Otherwise, let's just go ahead and join me on the show and let's talk about it. Right now, I'm going to say this to you. Let's see, Petra Ecam. Uh, you can have another conversation with me, right? Because I think you're talking about Ecam Live. For those that don't know, I utilize Ecamm to help me with whatever this is, right? Help me present to you all this wonderful and great information. We do it kind of through Ecamm and through other tools like, you know, Restream and, StreamYard, and we use OBS. We use all kinds of stuff, right? So, you know, that's a whole nother class, right? That's just a whole nother class. Like that's something we need to talk about on another day. Okay. So, any questions that you all have, drop it in the chat and we will kind of go from there. Um, yeah, I love, and if you have questions about user stories, that's what I would love to talk about tonight. Because we had a good conversation last week about the definition of ready. The definition of ready, that was a great conversation. It was a great conversation because most teams don't have a definition of ready. Just really don't, for some strange reason. And there's no reason for you not to have a definition already, unless you, well, I guess you ain't got to, right? Got to have a definition done, but a definition already, a lot of people miss out on. So you want to be, I try to be real clear on all the things that I do, but definition of readies and definition done is things that I would encourage from every single body that joins the show, period. Let's see. Let me take a look here and double check. I see you, Shane. How you doing? Evelyn, saw your question earlier. Testers create defects too. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, so yeah. Testers, anybody can create a defect, I would guess, right? I'm assuming that's from testing at some level. I would love to have, I would love to have my testers and developers working really close together, right? And if they work really close together, then we're good to go. So I have someone that's ready to join the show here. So let's go ahead and let's talk and let's answer their question. So give me a second. Let's go ahead and bring this up. Let me assign you to guest number one, and then let me bring you up on the show. Okay. There we go. How you doing?
I'm good.
Petra,
Can you
how's
hear
it
me?
going? I can hear you just fine. Just move over toward the other. There you go. Just get toward the
Oh
center. There
gosh.
you go. All right. How you doing? I love your
I'm
smile. You
good.
got an amazing smile.
Thank you.
All right. So what question do you have?
I'm on this iPad and it's looking crazy.
That's okay. We got you. Nothing but love. With all your blue background, you got like super blue in the background. That wall is
Yes.
super blue.
Yes. It's relaxing. It's relaxing. Okay, my question about the user story. The user story that you put up was very, very high level. I'm in the tech space. Okay. So I will look at that user story and we would I would look at that as the end product, what you put up there, the
Hmm.
demo. I mean, as a person you want to send money. So in order for that to happen, there's a lot of development that needs to be done.
Yeah, true.
So we would write a lot of technical user stories in order to get that user story accomplished.
Mm, that's interesting. I
You
believe you.
know, So I'm not seeing the correlation. That what you wrote was the end product. As a person, you want to send money so you can do whatever, right? And then that
Yeah,
demo, yes, we can demo that, but all those demos are separate processes from a development standpoint. So we would need
okay.
user
Well,
stories to
so whoa,
develop.
whoa, 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 slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. Let's back up,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Because I understand what you're saying, right? So
Hmm.
now, give me an example to help me out, right? I said demonstrate a $50 minimum send money threshold. What would be a user story that you would write for that?
Okay. So first, we would have a user story to set up whatever endpoints that we would
Okay,
need.
let's slow down. Let's slow down. Help me out. Help me out. So
Okay.
now,
Okay.
do you write in the user story format?
Yes, as a
Okay.
developer, I need to.
Hold up! Whoa! Did you hear yourself? Time out! Hold up! Is the
No,
developer a user? Huh?
no, a
Is it?
developer is not a user.
Oh, I'm
So how
sorry.
would you
Okay.
represent that then?
Because
Because
that's just a task. Just think about it. That's just an activity that they need to do. So if I have somebody that comes in and says to me, "Hey, you know what? Um, I want to for you to put in a kitchen sink."
Mhm.
Now, the people that's putting in the kitchen sink can say, "Hey, as Joe the demolition guy, I need to uh, knock down the current sink." Now, as a demolition guy, I need to knock down the current sink so the sink is out the way. Tell me, is that a user story anymore?
no, that is a task.
It's a task. So
Yes.
now let's go to the next thing. So
Hmm.
now, as a plumber, I need to rough in the plumbing so the plumbing can be ready. Well, so the plumbing can be in a position for the furnace for the sink to come in, right? Now, can I ask you a question? Is that a user story? It's just a task. So now,
Right.
Petra, ask me a question. You know, just help me out here because I really do want to understand, right?
Okay.
So now, why is it different at your job than what it is in your real world? Because what you just basically said to me is the things that I just gave you were tasks. So what makes the things that you all are doing not task?
Well, there could be several answers for that.
Yeah, but they're tasks, aren't there? They're activities that the developers need to do. And the user gets no value out of any one of those activities separately. So now,
I
I'm not
agree.
saying you shouldn't have tasks, no doubts. I agree with you, you should have tasks, right? But again, that's all in the how. That's all in the how. As a customer who wants a sink put in my bathroom, all I really want to tell you is I want a sink that has a certain look to it, that operates a particular way, and that's it. All that deep down stuff, tasks that you
Mhm.
need to do to get that done, why do we need to write those as user stories? Because they're not from the perspective of the user.
So then, okay, so when you're thinking about capacity, right?
Hmm.
So if we have
No, whoa, whoa, let's
15,
back up. Let's back up because everybody on the show may not know what capacity is. So let's make
okay.
sure we're speaking the same language, right? Now, for me, and this could only be me, but this is
Hmm.
according to the Project Management Institute, right? Capacity is how much time you have available to get something done. Would you agree with
Correct.
that? Okay,
Yes.
continue.
So when we're looking at capacity for each of the each member of the Scrum team,
Hmm.
how do we how do we calculate the capacity if there's only one user story and 15 tasks and each person has one
Well,
task?
time out now. Let's talk about this, right?
Okay.
Because this is super simple and it's real easy, right? So let's just say you, our person here, and you are helping to put in the sink, right?
Hmm.
Let's just say you work 40 hours a week. Let's just say you're working full time this week and you got two homes that you're putting sinks in, and you're going to spend 50% of your time on one, 50% of your time on the other. How much
Mhm.
capacity do you actually have for one home?
A little less than 50%.
You got 20 hours or less, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't hard to calculate, was it?
No.
Okay, now, if you take those user stories, those fake user stories that you was giving me, right? If you take those fake user stories that you was giving me, which is really activities, and you
Mm-hmm.
estimated those in hours, couldn't you determine how much you think you can get done?
Right, but estimating each task, how many
You can
hours they
estimate
got.
each task. Yep, how many hours it takes for each task, and that can tell you when you get up to 20 hours, right?
True.
That's something that you can do without the usage of story points whatsoever, right? So
Right.
why are we making this so difficult? Because we don't have to. Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm. Because the projects are being driven by user stories and how many points each person has based on user stories
Whoa,
versus.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold it. Let's back up. Now, let's talk about this, right? Because
Mhm.
maybe I'm confused. Okay. You said points. Are you referring to story points?
Story points, yes.
Now, let me ask you a question. When you estimate in story points, should you be estimating tasks with story points or requirements with story points?
Requirements.
Great. And we just said that the things that you described as user stories are really tasks, right? So should you be
That's correct.
really estimating your task as story points?
No.
No. And
So
the
I
thing
have
about
to.
it is that, well, let's go
Hmm.
back. Let's go back because we have one thing to say,
Hmm.
right? And you know that requirement, does that requirement require the team to complete it?
Yes.
Okay, great. And if that requirement requires a team to be completed, that means a user story is based on what the team can do to get it done, not what individuals can do to get it done. So using story
Mm,
points on an individual basis is a misusage of what you're doing, right?
yes. Very profound. But I can't tell the whole department they're doing everything wrong. So I'll
Yes, you
just
can. You can tell them whatever you want to tell them. You can tell them whatever you want to tell them, right? It don't mean that they're going to do it. But here's what you
right.
can do. Here's what you can do. You can try to run a small experiment.
Hmm.
You can try to figure out if you can find a way to correct this. And by correcting this, showing them how they would get more value out of truly using these concepts like they should be used. Like,
Okay.
you know, let's put it this way. I'm always training people. I go inside of companies and I help them out, right? And here's what you
Hmm.
can say to them, right? Here's something you can say, right? Most companies use a concept called t-shirt size, right?
Right.
And they will make t-shirt sizes equal to hours so they can do some calculations. If
Hmm.
you make t-shirt size equal to hours, couldn't you just skip the t-shirt size and just use the hours?
Yes.
So then why are you using story points and making story points equal to hours? If you're making story points equal to hours, then you might as well just do what? Use hours.
True. So our
Which
T-shirt sizes are being used. Uh, is a range of points for the
mhm.
T-shirt sizes for the.
and mhm. and the stories is a range of hours, right?
We use story points based on the complexity. We don't.
I'm
Yeah. We
sorry.
don't. We don't.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa. Let me back up for a second because maybe I'm incorrect, but
Hmm.
you let me know. Story points, by definition, is a relative measure of size.
Correct.
Size is a combination of complexity, effort, and risk. Three things, not one. Let me talk
Hmm.
to you about it real quick so you understand what I mean. Like, you know how you can have something that's really complex and it's 13 points, and then you can have something that's not complex at all, but it's a lot of effort, and that could be
Hmm.
13 points too.
True.
So you see the problem of just using one component for story points? It's really three. That makes sense?
Yes, yes, and we do talk
Okay.
about complexity, size, effort. We do
Your
talk about
complexity,
those
effort,
things.
and risk, right, should be the three
Well, maybe
components,
not risk.
and
Okay.
not in a way where we add them up. It should be we look at the whole
Look.
thing
Mhm.
because remember, for a requirement, it requires a team to complete the work. And see, here's the deal: story points at the task level aren't relative to each other.
Right.
But why is that? Because you're not comparing like for like. How can
Mhm.
you compare a story point of a tester to a story point of the developer? The work isn't like for like. However, when you compare this requirement, that's a software development thing, and this requirement is a software development thing, those have the same kind of work inside of them. So you can relatively compare those. You can't relatively compare tasks. So the usage of story
Okay.
points doesn't work. That, and I'm not even thinking about how they don't have similar experience, how they, it's just a whole different world, right? So realistically, when you think about all the stuff that you're doing, y'all are playing agile games with each other. Am I right?
Mhm.
Because you're
It,
forcing in concepts to fit in a world that you never wanted to change in the first place,
you
and
have a
just
point there.
throwing agile
Mhm.
titles on them, which makes no
Mhm.
sense, right?
Mhm.
So you want to use story points because it's an agile thing, but you're really making story points in the hours when you just could use hours. You want to have tasks for all the work that you do related to a requirement, a user story. But then you take those requirements and you take the task and turn them into user stories. You can feel like you're using user stories. All you're really doing is you're playing games with yourself, right? And it doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit them, right? And so, realistically, I
Mhm.
just think you got a little bit of work to do. Not saying it changes
Yeah.
overnight, right? But
Mhm.
you got a little bit
Mhm.
of work of educating people on a better way to do these things. And nobody says that everybody's going to go and do it the right way. I'm not even asking you to do that. What I'm saying is, I've just educated you. Now it's your
Right.
turn to educate them.
Yes. Thank you. This is good.
It is
It's
good.
making a lot of things make sense to me now, especially when it comes to the demo
Oh
at the
yeah,
end.
because your demo is a wreck, ain't it? It's a horrible, ain't it? Only your developers show up and they show to the product owner. Is that it?
It-
Huh?
but it's
Is
not
that
a
it?
complete. But it's not a complete product. Me, just
But
go.
let me
It
let
goes
me but
back
let
to
me
what you just said. You
It's
know.
not going to be. And here's the
Right.
deal. As a product owner, think about this. If you took my story and turned it into all of your user stories, are basically tasks, can I prioritize those things?
Mm-mm. Because it should report.
Okay,
No.
I
You're right.
can't, right? I can't
Right.
prioritize those things, right? And so now you got these things in my product backlog that I cannot prioritize. So all I can say to you is this, Petra. Can you get it all done for me? Right? That's what they say, don't they?
Hmm.
Because you just handcuffed them.
Well, it's
So now
not. Yeah.
you
It's
wonder
the
why your product
management.
owner's not involved. Well, yeah, the management, but
Yeah.
management needs to be educated. It's
Hmm.
your job to educate them, right? Because you know a different way of doing this now. And so it
Exactly.
becomes our responsibility to at least inform them. We can't make them go in a direction, but at least to
Hmm.
inform them about what's the right thing to do and how that could be very helpful. And some people just don't know any better. And that's okay
Right.
if they don't know any better, but you know better now.
And we will do this experiment.
Yeah.
I
So
have to
you
let you
will.
know how.
Yeah, let me know. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. You just got to understand when you're doing things the way that you're doing it, you mess up a lot of things. So you're not getting really good feedback in your reviews. You're not. You're not getting
Hmm.
really good feedback because there's nothing for the product owner to really give you feedback on. And realistically, that's all you can show it to is the product owner. And I say that when it's not even supposed to be that way.
Hmm.
You're supposed to
Hmm.
invite stakeholders in so stakeholders can give feedback. But you can't really invite stakeholders in because you're doing tasks. So the only person you can show stuff to is the product owner who's not that interested in what you're showing them because it's task, right? It should be the Scrum team Product owner, Scrum Master, developers go in a room and show or demonstrate to the actual stakeholders.
Yes.
But you can't do that, so now your sprint review becomes less valuable, which means nobody really wants to attend it. And now that
Hmm.
nobody wants to attend it, it becomes even less valuable, right?
Right, right.
So it just causes this kind of ripple effect from just starting off with something so simple
Hmm.
as, hey, our user stories. We need to make sure we have user stories from the perspective of the developers, from the perspective of the testers. And the other problem that you get is there's no reason for me to collaborate with my tester because I've gotten my story done. They need to do their story,
Hmm.
right? And so now if we don't collaborate together, that means my metrics is different than that person's metrics. So now as a tester, it's my job to write as many defects as I possibly can, not necessarily to collaborate with my developers. And as a developer,
Hmm.
it's my job to get the thing out my hands as soon as possible and get it in testers' hands because they're complaining about how they don't have enough time to test. When if they were all working as one team, they would all be concentrating on getting the user story done,
Hmm.
the user
Yes.
story done, not their own task.
Gotcha.
So
Thank you
less
so
reason for them to
much. Yeah.
collaborate. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
problem. I got you. I got you.
It's
Here
a
you go.
great
Come in here.
perspective.
I have to do some
Yeah.
Jedi mind tricks on you today. Cause you can't hey, let me tell you something. You came in here hot. You said, wait a minute! Wait a minute! You said, wait a minute! This is not the way it's supposed to be! What are you talking about? That's what you said to me. Do you know how hot you came in here? You said you came in here, you like, that blue background is calming. But I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna tell you something. That's what you did. You came in with the ninjutsu on me, man. I was scared. I was nervous. You had me nervous.
You weren't nervous. You weren't
I was
nervous.
nervous. How you gonna tell me if I was nervous? I was nervous. I was over here shaking in my boots. You see me shaking. You see me shaking.
No. But
No, but
you
I'm
have
glad.
clarified some things for me that never really made sense to me. So
Well,
I'm
that's the
glad.
purpose of the show. The purpose of the
Hmm.
show is to do just that. Is to kind of give people, a little bit more insight, right? Um, it's one of those things that I've been around Scrum since 2005, right?
Hmm.
And I remember being a young Scrum Master and just, the thing about it is that I've been fortunate enough to go inside of many large organizations. And what they would do to me, Petra, was maybe unfair, but I loved it, is they would always put me on the hardest thing in the building. And they would always switch me over to whatever became the hardest thing, right? And that's classically
Hmm.
what happened, which, when I think about people's experience within Agile, I also think about how dense their experience is. Some
Hmm.
people can have 2 or 3 years in Agile, but the density of that experience is really, really minimal, right? And so
Right.
what I have is I have really dense experience in terms of this thing. And I've been able to run a lot of experiments and I've tried to write user stories from the perspective of the developers and the testers and just really I don't get the same kind of team, right?
Hmm.
And I've done it on
Hmm.
more than one occasion, right? And the sprint review becomes not so valuable, and then it just becomes this cycle of things that don't work out. Toward us living and breathing the values and principles of the Agile Manifesto, because one of the values is working software with comprehensive documentation, and these things lead to more documentation. That's not really what I'm trying to do, and we still end up with sprints where we don't have any working product delivered. And if you're going to deliver a
Hmm.
working product every single sprint, you got to start thinking about these things a little different, because
Hmm.
it feels like it used to feel. Like if you've been around waterfall, what you're doing feels a lot like that, right? And
Hmm.
that's not the way it should feel. It should feel a little different, right? The energy around it should be a little bit, just a tad bit different, right? And so just, whenever you have these kind of things, it's okay to question it. I mean, every practice we should be able to question because the truth is always the truth, regardless of how you want to try to spin it. It's always the truth. And the
Yeah.
truth is, there's a lot of organizations that are doing exactly what you just said. And
Yes.
it just is what it is. It's unfortunate, but it's truth. And that's okay because it becomes our jobs to help people and show them the right way. And they may do it, they may not do it, and I'm not going to hold it against them or make them feel bad about what they're practicing and what they're not practicing. But it's just about education. And with
Mm-hmm.
most people, it's just that they don't know a different way. So if you think about it, the what 10 minutes we've spent here, I just saved you years of pain.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's communities like this where we come in and we exchange. And these kind of exchanges don't just help you, but it's going to help a lot of other people, Petra. It's going to help a ton of other people. There's a lot of people right now who are getting some value out of this conversation right now, right out of this
Uh-oh.
conversation,
What
right?
happened?
I don't know what happened. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. I think she left me. Something went down. I don't know, but that's okay. We'll catch up with her. Petra, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. We got you here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this and take us back to where we were normally at. So, you know, um, I enjoyed that conversation, everybody. I really did. She's coming back, so let me get a second here so we can say part ways here. So, hey, there. Oh, no, she left again. Okay, that's okay. But Petra, just so you know, we're good. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you having that exchange with me. You know, watch that back, right? Watch that back. I think there's a lot of things to learn from that exchange that we just had together, right? And for everybody else in the room, you should never be afraid to ask any questions, because here's the deal. you know Many of you was trained by me. I mean, literally. And being trained by me, I don't want you embarrassing me on the street. I want you to be the best that you can be. And if there's one way, if there's a way I can help you, a little nugget here, a little nugget there, just let me know. Just let me know. That being said, I enjoyed that. It was fun. It was fun. I had fun with Petra. So Petra, hopefully you got some value out of that. If y'all got some value out of that, please just drop in the chat a smiley face, right? Because I think that was a super valuable. I think that question was on point, right? It really, really, truly was on point. So let's see. Let's talk a little bit. Let me make sure I'm good to go here. Um, let's double check. Here's the deal. I don't think I'm gonna get all the questions answered, but I'm going back. Can we talk about Gherkin statements? Let's make that a future conversation, right? Because when you're talking about Gherkin statements, you're talking about giving win ends, and we can definitely talk about that for sure in a future show. So I will make sure that I keep that in mind, and we make sure we do that. You are so welcome, Petra. Ain't no problem that your videos bros. What matters is we had an amazing conversation, and I really, really did enjoy our conversation. Let's see. Let me see if there's anyone else here. I'm gonna make sure that I give you velocity. That's another conversation. Again, we could talk about velocity. I love velocity. Let's see. PO request equals story. Devs tell you how is done task. Exactly. 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 Right. Let's see. My developers add tasks to the user stories? Yes. Can those tasks get added to the user story? Absolutely. There's many, many teams today that add tasks to user stories, so that's a plus. Let's see, let's see, let's see, let's see. It becomes a part of breaking the stories down into smaller, valuable pieces. Yes, absolutely. Smaller units, that's exactly what you want to do, even before you break them down into tasks. So let's see. What about the definition of done? We'll make that a topic for sure. Definition of done definitely will be a topic in the future. We talked about definition already, but here's the deal. Let me make a little announcement to you all so then you all know. In the next week or so, I am going to be giving you more information about the 3-day event that I'm going to have. And that 3-day event is going to be around coaching. So basically, that 3-day event is going to be really simple. Okay. It's going to be for coaches, speakers, consultants, trainers that help others achieve their desired goals while getting paid to do it. So that's what the event is going to be all about. Right now, my title for that event is Straight No Chaser. And so so if you think about this, if you need to find your value, your purpose, you feeling stuck where you are now, if you're playing checkers and not chess, if you're feeling disregarded, disrespected, if you want to build legacy and work life, if you need to turn your voice into a bankable presence, that's what we're going to be talking about in that event. So we're gonna have a 3 day event. It's gonna be 3 full days, people. And so I'm gonna have more information about that event next week. So make sure you come ready. And that event is gonna be March 23rd. March 23rd through the 25th, I do believe. So I'm just double checking to make sure. I'm just giving you all an update because that thing is definitely going down. I made sure that I pulled my space together. I pulled everything together to make sure that that is going to actually happen. So just remember that event is coming March 23rd through the 25th. Right now, I don't have a real title. All I can think of right now is Straight No Chaser. That's all I can think of right now. But the ideas is going to be for coaches, speakers, consultants, even trainers that help others achieve their desired outcomes while getting paid to do it. That's what it's going to be all about. So if you're interested in that, be ready for more announcements come next week. I got some things to put together. I'm just getting all of the concepts together so we can be good to go. On that note, y'all, I'll leave that as my final announcement. I'm going to say to you all, hey, this has been more than a pleasure. It's always a pleasure for me. So this is the Unfiltered Call-In Show. Just don't forget about March 23rd through 25th. Straight No Chaser. It's going down. So I will see you all next week. Next week, we're actually going to be talking about splitting user stories. Splitting user stories. And I'm going to make sure that I pull up this fancy thing right here so we can talk about splitting user stories. On that note, hey, y'all, it's always a pleasure. I always love being here with you. Y'all have such an amazing week. Just make it a super amazing week. Make me proud, make yourself proud, do the damn thing. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Hey, peace. I'll see you next week.